Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez here. I am back using my older Canon camcorder camera, my action cam, the one with the very wide angle field of view, started acting up. Ended up that I just needed a new battery. It was a little bit swollen and it was affecting the touch screen. It was actually popping it out a little bit and disrupting the connection. So anyway, I hope you can see my Pro 1000 here. Yes, it looks like a Frankenstein printer now, but nevertheless, it's going to be the best printer you can possibly get for those of you who insist on using third-party inks, or say you want to refill, but you want to use OEM, you're free to do so. I have some OEM inks. I will be adding more and more to my bottles here. And so basically I obtained that from 700 ml cartridges that I then extracted the ink out of them. Actually, what I did was I drilled what is going to be refill holes for these cartridges very carefully. And then I poured out the ink onto those bottles using a funnel. And then those cartridges can be plugged. And remember, the chips have never been used. So you can use that on your Pro 2000 and higher by refilling those, and you'll get a free run the first time around. Once you get down to empty condition, in other words, declared by the chip, you go ahead and you disable ink monitoring, and then you can proceed to print for quite a long time. You can actually weigh those cartridges. You'll know what they weigh when they are empty, and you'll know what they weigh when they are full, and you can then set up some kind of refilling routine to make sure that you never run out of ink. That is very, very important, of course. Now let's look at this. So I have some sensors left here that I have not installed yet. So as you can see, I have the lid open. I have my little device to fool the printer into thinking that the lid is actually closed. So if I was to press the OK button, it sees it as being closed. It is showing me one photo magenta, cyan, photo gray, chroma optimizer, and magenta as having run out. But of course, we have done the opposite. We have actually refilled those cartridges, and they are not going to run out, believe me, because we are running these sensors. And I think out of the factory, they do not all come perfectly calibrated per se. I tested several and they seem to border around detecting 10 milliliters out of one of these cartridges. When you attach one smack in the center, in other words, off to the right, because there are two bevels on here, you cannot put it in the middle. It won't sit straight. So you got to choose which side. So if you drill on the left side, then you're going to mount it on the right side, and so forth. Now, there are some tricks that you can do. For instance, I thought, well, the ones on the right, I would do to the right, and the ones on the left, I would drill on the right and then mount the sensor on the left. That gives me a little bit more play with the cables because they're all the same, and you have to be able to, some sort of management system that's not going to create a cable tangle, if you will. So there are tricks that we're going to still discover to come up with the best practices, the best way to install this system so that it works. Now, what have I done? Like I said, some of these cartridges, the ones that are X, the ones that I just mentioned, have run out. In other words, their chips have gone empty, at which point I have disabled by pressing this button for 5 seconds. Now, what Mike tells me is that even though I am still able to print, the printer just keeps on warning me that I may run out of ink. In other words, the driver, when I look at the driver ink levels and I hover over any of those colors that are now red X, it just tells me, hey, if you continue to print, you might run out of ink. But we know better because we have a full load of ink on all of those red X cartridges. Now, the ones with the yellow exclamation mark, those are still considered low. They haven't reached empty. They haven't been disabled, so they are still officially low. Now, some of these here are running on auto reset chips, and I don't know whether you can disable those. So what I'm going to do, as I reach those conditions, I'm going to go ahead and basically modify a original cartridge with an original OEM chip, and we'll go ahead and proceed with that. But at this point, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more to go. That's the matte black, the photo black, the blue, the yellow, and the photo cyan. So what we do basically is this. You can use a hand drill. If you have a drill press, much better. Use very low RPM. If you have a hand drill, you need to get yourself a plastic drilling steel bit. In other words, a bit that has the cutting angles designed in a way to cut through plastic a lot cleaner, because most of the time they are designed for metals, especially steel, brass, that sort of. In fact, they're not even that good for brass or aluminum. They are great for steel. So what you are going to do is you're going to locate, again, like I said, if you want to mount the sensor on the left bevel, you may want to drill on the right side. And in order to do that, basically, as well as you can do it, is to choose the corner right there by the label. This area here is a little bit thicker. I'll point it out right here. This area right here, right on the corner of the label, either side, it's a little bit thicker. It has a little bit more plastic thickness to it. It'll give you more surface to seal against with your plug. So I'm not going to drill this one because we have ink in it yet. But anyway, you're going to use an RPM like this. Not like this, not like that. Slow. Slow and steady, and don't try to do this. Try not to do that, because you want as true a hole as you can get, 5/32 of an inch diameter, and that will seal perfectly with these little tabbed type plugs. And I believe I have one here. You can see the yellow tab. I'm sorry, my setup right now, I would have to get up. Let's go ahead and do that and bring it up to the lens. And as you can see, there's a tab right there. I got my camera on a tripod over there. I just want you guys to be able to see everything. I may bring it over here closer at some point. But anyway, so that's it. Once you finish drilling your hole, you're going to want to clean it up. By that I mean that there may be a little bit of a raised ridge. You want to trim that off. These are the best things you can possibly get. We used to shave with these back in the 50s, okay? Trim off that little ridge. You'll have a nice clean hole. I worry about chips getting inside. Well, no, these are spiral drills. They will pull the chips out, not push them in. Spiral drills pull out the chips, or the swarf. In metalworking, we call it swarf. So once you get that hole drilled, do you want to flush it? You really don't need to. You really don't need to. You can go ahead and refill it straight away. Now, you're going to need 80 milliliters of ink to refill the cartridge the first time. Okay? That brings you to about 112 grams. Empty, it's 32 grams. Empty. So it'll bring you up to about 112, 113, something like that. You still have a little play to mess around with. You can, increase it, decrease it a little bit. Doesn't really matter, because we're going to be using sensors to detect the actual levels of the ink. In other words, not as it's being used, but when it reaches a certain condition that we're going to what? We're going to calibrate. Yes. So straight out of the factory, it seems that these sensors will detect, because they're not designed for this. They're designed for other purposes. We're going to adapt them for this. So out of the factory, give and take, they will detect 10 ml of existing fluid inside this container. If you plug it in, if you have 10 ml of ink and you plug it in and you take one of these sensors, what I do, again, this doesn't have to be exact to the millimeter. It does not have to. I put my fingers here. The diameter of this sensor is approximately the height of this cartridge. So I attach it right there like that, like so. And I'm going to demonstrate in a later video how to do the actual calibration. But here's what you do. If you have nice sharp nails, if you don't use some kind of sharp edge instrument, you're going to pop off. I need to get up to the camera. You're going to need to pop off this little cap, and it's very easy. You can see there's a little ridge right there. Stick your nail in there, pull it out like so. You're going to see that little area that has a little bit of blue. That's a calibration screw. So what I have learned, and I have kind of a standard right here. I have a control cartridge that has 20 milliliters of ink. That's twice what I think these things come calibrated for. Okay, and I don't mean calibrated for because they're not supposed to be used for this. We're using them for this. So at the factory specs, they seem to detect 10 ml. 10 ml is a little bit too low for me. I wanted to detect at least 20. So I have added 20 to this gray. Now, you see the light is on and you see that position 4 is off. That's because I added 5 more ml to that cartridge. We're going to be running some tests. But anyway, you begin with a cartridge with 20 milliliters of ink. You attach the sensor, remove the cover, and then crank the screw. You're going to need a little micro screwdriver. You're going to crank the screw counterclockwise, half, and then slowly continue turning until the light changes. Either this will go out or this will go out. One of them. They're not going to be both on at the same time, okay? You'll never see that when it's actually plugged in and working. One of them will be on, one of them will be off, depending on which area you're looking at. And I'll explain to you why that's important. So once you have it so that, like I told Mike today, so if I look at it the wrong way, it's going to flicker one way or another. That is a perfect calibration at that point. Now, keep in mind that these cartridges can be jiggled. As you can see, when they sit in position, you can jiggle them. So that may alter your calibration. So you got to be careful. You're going to get it within a couple of ml, either up or down from 20. That's what you're shooting for. That means that when the light is triggered, in other words, right now, we have position 1, position 3, and position 6. The lights are on. You know why? There's no sensors attached. Position 2, position 4, position 5, they have sensors attached, and the lights up here are off. Okay, when the lights up here are off, and you're going to have this cover down printing all the time anyway, you're not going to be looking at your cartridges. You're going to be looking at this. So over here on this side, I have the first 4. They're off. That means those cartridges do not require ink, yet the sensors are on. And again, that's just kind of a double insurance or a redundancy that you really want. People complain about that, but I said no, actually it is a good thing. You want that redundancy. If this is off, how do I know that sensor is working? Because it's on. The light is on. Okay? And when the sensor light goes off and this light comes on, then I know that is working. That means that cartridge reached that threshold. It is now ready to be refilled. Okay? So by knowing that we have a sensor that is calibrated within 20 plus or minus 1 or 2 ml, then we know that when we reach that point where the light comes on, then all we have to do is load up what? How much? 60. 60 will then fill up that cartridge safely without any overflow. If you really are nervous, then load 55. Who cares? It doesn't really matter because we're always going to be monitoring this system at 20 milliliter threshold. Okay, so whether I load it up to 70 or 75 or 80 or 82, it doesn't really matter. At 20 ml, the light will come on, give or take a couple of mLs. And remember, you can jiggle this. You can jiggle this around. So there's always going to be some, fluid sloshing in there if indeed, you play around with the cables. Now, cable management, you got 12 cables coming out of this printer. you're going to have to come up with some method to control this mess, this tangle of cables. So you can purchase these on Amazon.com. They're little cable management clips. They have sticky backs. You open it up, insert the cable, close it, and then find a good location for it. If you saw the pictures that I had on my Facebook group, then you see what I'm talking about. The last 2 in the series, I think it was the last 4 maybe in the series of pictures, and also on the live stream I did show them this Sunday. So another type is this one. This is what I've been using because it seems to be a little better design. They're very, very sticky, okay? The protective tape on the back, I mean, you cannot just carefully peel it off. You have to take a blade, score it, lift a corner, and then either with tweezers or sharp nails, grab it and then yank it, and it comes right off. And then you have a very, very sticky background. Here's what it looks like. You open it up like this, insert your cable inside, and close it. You hear the click, and you can close it tight or you can close it loose. You can actually add 2 cables or 3 cables, but most of the time I will be using a single cable. So what I'm going to do is position these in a manner that allow me to have all of the 6 cables on the left neatly fed to the side, as you can see here. And they are attached staggered like a little stair on the side, and that is it. Then they connect to the board. Speaking of tangles, yeah, you can see what I just went through. Anyway, that is about it. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and do some testing. Why? What did I do? Well, I took my control cartridge, that's my gray at this moment, that had perfectly 20 ml of ink in it, and that's what I've been using to calibrate the rest of my sensors. And I got to finish doing the last 5. I will set them aside, and then I will go ahead and fill up the remaining cartridges that are still rendered low. Once they reach empty, I'll be able to top those off. I'll be able to modify them and proceed with those. But right now I'm working with 4, and that's 8 cartridges that have been modified, refilled, and had sensors attached to them. I'm going to be doing a rather critical test, and that is I added 5 milliliters extra gray ink to my gray cartridge, and position 4 has turned off. It used to be on. That means that just 5 milliliters turned it off. It said you now have above the threshold of ink. So now we're going to go ahead and print. Basically, I'm just going to lower everything down. I'm going to proceed to load some paper during this week, and I'm going to proceed to print. Maybe I will print some monochrome images to hurry up and use up that gray ink, and then we'll monitor the light to see when it comes on. I will take the cartridge out and do this. I'm going to proceed to remove the sensor. You can remove the sensors carefully. They're tightly attached, but if you're very, very consistent with the way you pull laterally, it will come right out and you'll be able to restick it. It's not going to harm anything. I will go ahead and weigh that cartridge. I want it to weigh 132 grams because I added basically 20 grams of ink. If an ml weighs a gram, let's just assume that. So it has to weigh approximately that. Then I'll go ahead and refill it to the top. Okay, so that'll be it. And then from now on, I'll be able to just print, and all I got to do is worry about my lights. Okay, that is it. From now on, again, like I said, there's not going to be anything to do with chips any longer. Once we disable all of them, all you got to do is continue refilling those cartridges as you are commanded to do so by those lights, and you are all set. Now, so anyway, that is about it. All of these things you can get on Amazon. If you wish, I can add them to my affiliate store or link. Oh, by the way, another little item here. This is a clip that will hold cables, and it's not necessarily for this, but it can be used. Definitely can be used. I was thinking about using it maybe at the edge somewhere, but for other uses, say you got a bunch of cables on a table like that, you can attach these here like so, and have all of your cables from all of your charger units coming from the bottom. Simply put, again, it's just a clip-like device, like so. This will hold 12 USB charger cables if you have that many, and kind of keep everything rather neat, okay? You can attach these to the side of your computer if you have a lot of USB devices connected to it as well. And again, I will put all of these little items on my Amazon affiliate page. All right, I'll be back very soon to basically at least try to catch when that sensor triggers. We'll catch it live, hopefully. What I will do, I figure I shouldn't have to do too many prints to be able to use up 5 ml of gray. Gray is used rather quickly, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And I got 3 more large 700 ml cartridges that I'm going to then pour out. And any excess that I may have, I use it on my Pro-10, okay? As long as those colors are actually a match. So it's going to be fun. Things are looking up. All right. Thank you so much. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. Happy printing, everybody. And from now on, no worries. Happy refilling. Bye-bye, everybody.